what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out by just kind of doing a quick overview of the Mirror API for anybody who's not familiar with it. So I'm just going to kind of like run through real quickly. There'll be like little bits of Java code in there. And then after we kind of get through just kind of going over the basics of Mirror, we'll jump into some code. I have two projects. They're both actually on GitHub, and I have a long blog post about this whole thing for anybody that doesn't feel like taking notes right now. So the first project that I'll show you, well, in which order I'm not sure. So I've got one that does Node.js, basic authentication, and then it just kind of like inserts some cards into your timeline and also a contact. And then I have a bit with Android that I pulled from an app that I'm working on that allows you to authenticate and then insert a card that does like navigation stuff. You could very easily take that and put a share intent on there or something like that so that you could share stuff from your phone to class. I'll talk a little bit about that when I get to it. So I'm just going to, like I said, real quick overview of Mirror. There's a lot of, Mirror kind of has a bit of an outflow, lots of questions about it. So here are the basic topics. You have to start with OAuth, like you can't get in unless you've authenticated. Either is, you have to set it up first as a developer, going through the Google Developer Console. And then you have to authenticate via OAuth to have cards sent to them via Mirror. And you've got the timeline, very basic. It's just the collection of stuff that you see on glass. Cards are items within the timeline. Locations, obviously they are menus, subscriptions, contacts. We'll go through all this stuff briefly. So here's how you can Google for Google Developer Console. That's what I always do, remember the address. And then you'll just start a project. You'll dive into the APIs section there and turn on the Google Mirror API. And my Android one actually also uses the Google Plus API. Okay, and then go to OAuth, and then you can see there's it's a little small on the screen, but there's the client ID and then the client secret. And I blanked it out, but those are the couple bits that you need if you're doing a server-side piece. It's actually a little bit easier on Android. And I'll talk about that in a minute. And then here's where you would put in your JavaScript origins and redirects. So if you're working on localhost, that's what I do. So OAuth, like I said, you grab those values, dump them into your project. Here's the Java quick start OAuth code. And I think I'm going to just kind of skip over this. I'll go over this with the other projects. I'm going to go back and forth. And then here's what it would look like on the web. So you have a page, and then there's a button, the Get Here button, and then we'll redirect to Google, and then you pick an account. You come back, and you say, okay, yeah, you're allowed to do that, and then you're into the app. All right, real quickly on the timeline. The timeline is kind of just a big collection of stuff. You're swiping through the sea. So I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this because it's really the basics, but it's kind of the main thing. If you haven't used Glass, it's the main interface is the timeline. You kind of get pushed content, and it all goes into the timeline in your history, and just kind of gets stacked back there. It's a really nice paradigm for pushing data and content to you. It's also really nice for being able to launch stuff without navigating very much.
John, they can't hear you back here. Can you talk closer to the mic or a little louder?
Sure. Yeah.
Thanks. There you go.
Okay. So it's also really nice for launching stuff quickly without needing to navigate very much. you know, if you need to go get something that's in your timeline, you can swipe back a little bit. It's also ephemeral, sort of. You keep cards for about 7 days, and then they disappear. And that's fine because you don't really, like, I don't think I've ever swiped past a day, just because, you know, that information lives in other services. It's nice on Glass to be able to access that stuff quickly, but really, you know, it's about the service. The other thing is it allows for more contextual services. I'll talk about that when I get to it. Yeah. Those are the cards. Cards are, again, items in the timeline. They could be a bunch of different things. You can have pictures of cats, of course. So here's some Java code to insert stuff in the timeline. And again, I'll go through this when I get into the code. Locations. So cards that contain location data, so they'll have like typically an address and then a latitude, longitude, and then you also will have a menu to enable like navigating to those cards or to the address. Inserting location, very similar to inserting a regular timeline item, but you add a location. You can also subscribe, like as Glassware, I can subscribe for users' locations. It requires an extra permission, but basically, like if you are Starbucks and you know I want to be able to offer coffee to anybody that's using my Glassware that's near a Starbucks, you know, discounted coffee, I can do that. And if I'm done with Starbucks, I can do the same thing, and it's an art installation. Menus, it's just, you know, there are things that you can click on with a card, and I will demo this when I get to the demo portion. It's pretty simple, extremely verbose in Java for some reason to add menus, but that's it. You can subscribe for updates to cards. So this would be like if you can get a callback to kind of say like, okay, this was delivered, or the user deleted this thing. So if you've got a user who's deleting a lot of your stuff, or better yet, if you have a user who's deleting a lot of a certain type of content, like you don't maybe deliver that sort of content to them anymore, maybe they're more interested in something else. So yeah, reply is also a type of subscription. Custom, you can have custom actions built in, location updates coming back to you with subscriptions, and also voice commands. So like Evernote's, you know, take a note. If you're on the main Glass, you can say, okay, Glass, take a note with Evernote, and you know, say whatever, it'll go to Evernote. Here's the code for this. I'm actually not going to go over this in my code samples because you need to be published to a real server somewhere, and I'm too lazy to do that right now. But that's the code. It's, again, not that hard. It's covered. Okay, now for people who are working with localhost with subscriptions, this is actually for, not localhost, but if you're like on a server that doesn't have SSL, if you're trying to do this on localhost, there's a tool called ngrok, and there's a couple other tools that do similar stuff that allow you to route. They give you like a public address for your localhost, so that will be in the write-up. I didn't have time to correct this all, but contacts. So these are people and services, people and Glassware that you can send data to. So the people is kind of obvious, right? Like I want to send an email to somebody, so I'd send an email to a contact. But I can also share content to other Glassware. So Pocket, for example, I really like Pocket. I use the service constantly. And you know, if Pocket had Glassware that created a contact, I could share information to Pocket from other things that supported the share intent. You can do this with Evernote. Evernote's another example. Like if you use Evernote a lot, Evernote has a contact. You can just share stuff to Evernote and it'll go in there. So it's nice for being able to share things between Glassware, and I think it's a very interesting thing that will hopefully become a lot more useful once there's more Glassware that does contacts. And you can also post an update or take a note of those. And that is the end of the presentation. Okay. So now we're going to open the code. Let me get the screen monitoring set up. This will just take a minute.
Great job, John. You worked pretty hard on this, so I hope you got a lot of good information out of that. There. Shut it on default.
Okay. I think I'm going to demo the stuff on the device real quick before going too much into code. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you an app that I've been working on that basically will send notifications from your phone to glass. So here's the UI. It's really simple. Basically, so I'm going to leave that. I'm going to go to the maps. And this is kind of the thing that I had mentioned about being able to share a location. Okay, so we have an address there. I'm just going to click share. That. And cross my fingers that I have a good enough connection right now. Just want to see it quickly. I can also share something there. Okay. So you see like this notification here that came up, and then I also have Google Plus notifications. Now, I can go to Glass, and this is the address that I just sent, and I can actually navigate to it. Okay. Or this was the other notification that showed up there that I sent from my phone. So the relevant bits here, okay, from the presentation, this is the timeline, the giant big long thing that lasts 7 days. There's a card. Okay, I have menus that I can do stuff with. Here's this contains the location, so I can navigate to it. And yeah, that's basically the relevant things. So let's look at first, I guess we'll do the Node.js code. This is actually pretty simple. It's less than 200 lines long. And it's kind of interesting because this was undocumented. Like, there's no documentation for doing Node.js with Mirror. Google does provide this Google APIs NPM package, which is really nice. It's got everything in there, and it actually has all the Mirror. Like, it has enough in there to get you talking to Mirror, and everything's just JSON. Like when you're kind of going back and forth from Google, so it's really easy to just inspect what you're getting back when you start sending stuff. Like once once you get far enough to be able to make the first request, everything after that you can kind of do just by inspecting the responses you get. And that's kind of how I figured all this out in terms of how the API goes for Node. So it's a pretty standard thing using Express, which I'm just using basically because I was too lazy to rip it out.
John, could you make the fonts a little bigger, please?
Sure. Actually, not sure how to do that. There we go. Is this better? Good? Okay. Okay, so let's see, we're running on 81 here, which I'll hop to in a minute. So I'm just going to jump down to the bottom. Like, these are the endpoints on the server. So you've got the root endpoint. You've got your callback that you handle coming back and along. Reply, which doesn't do anything. Location doesn't do anything right now. And then we're going to start up the server. Okay, and then the other thing I should mention is this piece here, which you can actually find this code in the package documentation. It's basically the same code that you use for authenticating with Google+, which is what the example shows. The only real difference is that your scope's going to be different. But you still need, your client ID, your client secret, and a redirect URL. Okay. I'm just going to describe the flow real quick, and then we will take a look at it. So the start server, the client's going to come in and hit the root URL. Okay, they're not going to be authenticated, so we're going to step into this block here and say, okay, we want to generate an auth URL. We need offline access, and then the scope is the Google API's auth class timeline. Again, this is the piece that's different from the Google Plus demo that's used in the examples for this package. Okay, and then we're just going to redirect them to the URL that the auth client's generating. Okay, and then that takes them off to Google. That's where they'll click through the stuff saying like, okay, you have you're allowed to do this. Okay, and then we're going to come back to the OAuth2 callback. This is what we specified as the redirect URL. Okay, and then we're going to jump into this method grab token, which one of the parameters is the code, which is a piece that comes back in that URL. I just had this failure thing that just logs if you have a failure, and then a callback function that redirects you back to here. So we can step into this real quick. Okay, pretty simple. So if there's no error, I'm going to say like get token. This is on the OAuth client. It's provided. Again, this is the sample. So this is all the same, basically, as what's in the sample for Google+. Okay. This piece, what you get back in the initial response, you get a code. And then you have to exchange that code for a token. So that's what this is doing. Okay, and then so we go to the success callback, which wants to redirect us to this block. Okay, now we have credentials, so we go into the got token call. Okay, now we're just going to do stuff. Like we're gonna insert a timeline item. We're going to say hello and insert a contact and location. And then these things, it's literally just the code to insert stuff in Mirror. Again, like these things are not documented for the Google API's Node package, but you can figure this stuff out with inspection. So After you get OAuth done, which you can do only by changing the scope and copying the code for the Google Plus example, from there, like just dump everything to the terminal and kind of set through what responses you're getting, and you can come up with these APIs pretty easily. And also, the mirror documentation includes a lot of raw HTTP requests. It's just JSON, and that's all this is too. So it's actually pretty simple to work with because of that. So yeah, let's run this real quick, and I'll show you what this looks like, and then we'll jump over to the end. Okay, the first thing, okay. You can kind of see some of this stuff. I dumped like just about everything to the terminal. And again, the code is on GitHub, and I will post links after this. But you just kind of see like what's coming back from this insert timeline call. We get a bunch of stuff coming back from that. So this is the thing that I inserted. Yeah, and then I should have gotten it on glass, and I did. I'm going to show you that. Okay, so it's routing me here because that's where I wanted it to go. So it was, one of the cards that I inserted was let's go to the Dojo, and then there's just a hello world. I also inserted a contact, but I don't know. Let's see if I can show it. No. I don't have anything like handy that I can. Oh wait. No, I don't have anything handy that I can like share something real quick. So, but it's there. So yeah, it's not that hard to get started with Node. The stuff that I didn't do in this sample project was handle sessions and stuff like that. You handle that the same way that you handle normal sessions with Node. And again, I was too lazy to do that. So, okay, here is the Android side. And I need a little bit more than this. We can start with. This code is very, very similar to the app that I showed you a little bit ago. I basically copied all of the